What's up, everybody? Welcome to the FanDuel NBA Draft Lottery Watchalong here, obviously on FanDuel, YouTube, Twitch, wherever you can find us right now. I'm Brian Fonseca, NY. NY is in New York, your host today. Joining me is first our college NBA draft guru at FanDuel, Ryan Hammer, at Ryan Hammer 09, as you see there, his Twitter handle. Ryan, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I guess I'll take that. That intro was decent.
Yeah, draft. I mean, if you follow Ryan, you know that he's all over this stuff. He's absolutely all over this stuff for the draft. And here at the bottom of the screen, we have a special guest with us. And you see his Twitter handle there at Bansky. His name is Eddie Gonzalez. He co-hosts the Etceteras with Kevin Durant on the boardroom and does other work at the boardroom. Eddie, how are you?
I'm good. I like the accent on the last name. I appreciate that.
I'm Puerto Rican, bro. You know what I'm saying?
I get it. I'm good
on that. So
I'm good, man. I'm happy to see. Excited to see the ping pong balls do whatever it is they do in the back that they never show us.
The frozen envelopes. They had the frozen envelopes.
Yeah, Isn't it like some crazy calculation? Like it's like 9 for each one or something, or like it's multiple variations. It's not just 27 or whatever they like that. So. They should show us, but they want to cheat, so it's fine.
Yeah, so thank you to everybody watching. We're going to take you up until about tip-off to Heat Celtics. Obviously, you know, we're not gonna try to intrude on that game because that's what everybody's going to be watching at the end of the day anyway after this. But first, we have the draft lottery, and a lot of teams in the mix here, guys. And chat, bring comments, questions. We'll get to them throughout the course of the show. We'll try to get some of them in here. And remember, we also have a giveaway. We are giving away something as part of the stream, a signed Sadiq Bey jersey, and we're going to tell you how to enter that very shortly. You also get 100 DFS credits on FanDuel, so signed Sadiq Bey jersey. So we're expecting a lot of Pistons fans who want to get some love. So yeah, I mean, guys, let's start this off because the draft lottery has started. This is our watch along, and the Pistons are one of the teams with great odds at the number 1 overall pick. They have a 14% chance. The Orlando Magic and Houston Rockets are also tied there. But there's a lot of teams like they're trying to turn it around their franchise. Ryan, Eddie, either of you could jump in here, but just like, what do you sort of expect from the night? And just in terms of like, you know, the teams that probably most need to win this or most need to get a high draft pick to really turn things around. Eddie, let's start with you.
For me, I think the Pistons, because they feel like the closest to an actual competing team. The Thunder aren't trying to play NBA basketball for years to come. The Rockets are still sorting out what they're doing. And then the Magic, I mean, the Magic are kind of in the same place as the Thunder, but the Pistons actually have some stuff going. They seem like a competitive team. Cade is it looks like he's ready to carry, and they got a bunch of nice pieces out there. So, yeah, if you're them, you want that number 1 spot, and you want to add another tool so you can try to compete in the East this year.
Ryan, who do you think, sticking with the Pistons, who do you think is, because we were talking about this before we got started, the best fit next to Cade Cunningham, regardless of where the Pistons would draft, you know, whether they get the first pick, second, third, they just got the first pick with Cade Cunningham. So win the lottery back-to-back would be sweet. But like, you know, next to Cade Cunningham, Sadiq Bey, Jeremy Grant, if he's still there, like, who do you think best suits them?
It's tough. Like if they get number 1, they're not going to go Ivy. Ivy is who I think is the best fit. They need another guard. They need another offensive guard to play off of Cade. They both have 1 and 2 guard potential and like upside. So I think they balance each other out really, really well. What Cade doesn't do well with explosiveness, athleticism, which he's not terrible at, but that's what Ivy thrives on, I think. So I think that'd be the best fit. But like you said, like if they get number 1 pick, like they're not going to take Ivy there because there is still a level of best player available. They can't just take best fit when you're a team that was not even close to making the playoffs, even though next year they could be with the right person. But like you said, with Jeremy Grant, who knows what their plans are with that. If they want to add Chet, Jabari, Paulo, like it wouldn't surprise me. But if they get a top 2 or 3, I expect them to take one of the forwards. But if they're at maybe 3, probably 4, then Ivy's definitely their guy.
So you like another guard as the fit, not one of the wings, not one of the big guys?
Yeah.
As like a ball handling thing or?
Oh, a little bit of both. Like you see like a lot of teams that like take the Mavs, for example, they're going far. They traded for Dinwiddie. They have Brunson. Having like secondary, tertiary ball handlers. The Hawks need that with Trae Young if they want to be good. He got absolutely dismantled because he was the only guy handling the ball versus the Heat. I'm a Hawks fan. I'm allowed to say that, so it's okay. But they like, I think it balances out very, very well. And they do have good size. Like Sadiq Bey is a solid shooter as he plays a 3. Isaiah Stewart's smaller. I think he's like 6'9" at the center, but he plays strong. He averaged like 8 or 9 boards a game this year. Like he plays physical enough to play against 7-footers. So I think a 2 guard is what they need, or a guard is what they need. Like Killian Hayes is not going to be their guy long term. He could play like a Marcus Smart type role, but we'll see.
I like it. I see the vision. I get what you're going for.
Yeah, but they'll probably end up getting like pick 7. We'll never know.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Mathurin at 7, maybe.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because Benedict Mathurin is somebody that, like, during the NCAA tournament before Arizona ended up losing, he was somebody that I thought could creep into that top 5, and he still might. He still has time, I suppose. But like now, I'm seeing him mock late teens. I mean, not late teens, early teens, or top 10, late top 10, something along those lines. I mean, he's somebody who intrigues me. I feel like he needs to get to the right spot, and they could really hone in on his talent. I actually like his defensive upside. I know some people are down on him in that regard. I saw a couple comparisons to Karis LeVert, to which I really like Karis LeVert. I didn't quite see that in his game. And
Karis is smooth. Karis is super smooth.
Right. Like that was something that confused me a little bit. As somebody who like covered the Nets from 16 to 19, I saw a lot of Karis LeVert. So I was like, all right, I don't really see that, but I think Benedict would be very nice on a bunch of these different teams, especially if he goes to the right spot in terms of development, though. And that's the thing. We see a lot of the same teams in the lottery often because they sort of struggle at development. So I'm hoping that's not the case. Like maybe, you know, the Spurs are a team that I think have an interesting lottery situation here because they have multiple first-round picks. I think they're going to have 3 in total because they're going to have 1 here in the lottery that we're going to see where that goes. And then they also have 20 and 25, 20 from Toronto and 25 from Boston. So the Spurs are a team that I think can maybe turn things around fairly quickly.
What do you think of Mathurin, Ryan? Because to me, the Karis comparison is kind of off. I see him as definitely more athletic, and I'm with you, Brian. Like I think with the right tutelage, I guess he could definitely be a force defensively. You kind of seeing that in the playoffs. These rangy, long, athletic guards. Like, yo, we just need you to chase guys off the line and run around as much as you can. And you could see him doing that. I know college, you never quite know with defense in college unless it's like a Matisse Thybulle, who even him, he played in the zone in college. So it was like you had to see the instincts and athleticism. But he looks like somebody to me that is a modern player, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so he kind of does the things necessary of a guard in the modern game. What do you think, Ryan?
I think he's got, like you said, like he does things like a guard. I think he was able to do that at Arizona, but he's got the physicality of a wing, like a true forward. Mm-hmm. I compare a lot to like Terrence Ross, Andrew Wiggins a little more. Like he has a smooth game when he needs to, a smooth scoring game. He can play the 2 or the 3, but he is a freak athlete. Like we saw, like the dunk in the TCU game was absolutely outrageous. Like I still can't get my mind off that. But he I think it's a weird though, because like he's in the mix where he is. I have him in top 10 still on my board, but next to guys like AJ Griffin, who's not an explosive athlete, Shaedon Sharpe, who's kind of a little more of a question, but he's also a good athlete, but he's more of a natural 2 guard than the 3. And I think his athleticism, Benedict, kind of like gives him that edge against those guys where if a team like the Pistons says, we want Cade to be the smooth guy, the pure scorer, kind of like Luka is, and not play above the rim because that's not the type of guy that he is normally. We want to pair him with the guy who does that, like Mathurin could be the guy if like Ivy's gone or something like that. So
I feel like him being tired and kind of just playing out in the tournament in the way he did left like a foul taste on a lot of people's mouths, but he had a better season than the way he went out in the tournament.
Yeah, he's I have no doubts in him. I think like Brian mentioned about the defensive upside too, like as an athlete, and like Eddie mentioned also, like the Raptors are a good example. Gary Trent, like what they've done with him also, like they just put freaking athletes, versatile athletic wings on their team, and they just figure it out. And like Mathurin could be one of those smaller type of guys because you can't have everybody be 6'10" on the team, 6'8". Like you got to have a couple guards, I guess, to balance it out. Mathurin could definitely be one of those guys because like athletically, he can defend strictly based off that, and you can teach him to work on mechanics and like understanding and IQ.
Yeah, for me, when I look at the draft and usually when I watch college or, you know, even the other ways the guys are making to the league, I'm looking at these guys like, okay, how do they play in the NBA? And what is the NBA looking like in a couple years too, as it continues to transform year by year? And I'm watching the Celtics, and that feels like the prototype to me. Like we just have all these tall guys. Some of them can shoot, but they're big, they're strong, and they're athletic. And so we're just gonna guard everybody. And yeah, that's where somebody like Mathurin, like, yo, we get him in the right team. We get him on Toronto, right, and we teach him how to play within our scheme. Like, yeah, he could be a defensive force because he is that athletic, and that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, even guys like Herb Jones also, like you said before, like Those guys, he got picked like 35 last year. Like teams are
Yeah.
going to take them earlier in the 20s and the 10s if they have
Yep.
to. Scotty Barnes wasn't supposed to go 4 last year, but he went 4 for a pretty good reason. So
we got a comment. We got a comment. Not to cut you off, but we got a comment here. I want to see, Eddie. What do you think of this? Because we were talking about player comps for Benedict Mathurin, and Pistons Talk here says reminds him of Quentin Richardson.
Q Rich had a rifle. So
yeah,
he's gonna have to shoot a little bit better for that one. But young Q Rich, man, he can really get up there. He can run the court and he can really jump. So I say a little bit, but he was quite the shooter at his time, man.
And underrated rebounder for a wing player, also like could really pull him down at his peak. Quentin Richardson is interesting. Like I do appreciate the comparison because I appreciate like comparisons that are like to players from a couple of generations prior, not just ones that are currently still playing now. Like I saw the Karis LeVert when I've seen Jaden Ivey being linked to Donovan Mitchell and, of course, John Morant. Those are very popular comparisons for him. Chet Holmgren's had, I mean, he's had a wide range of different comparisons. I've seen a lot of Kristaps Porzingis. I think people are just going like, oh, he's big, he's white, he's tall, the frame, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, he's not quite the same, but I understand it. But like, I appreciate that. Like Jabari Smith was one for me where I sort of said this, and Ryan, I'm going to toss it to you here because I want to see what y'all think of this.
Yeah.
Very early on, he reminded me of Rashard Lewis. And then I started seeing a lot of Rashard Lewis comparisons, though I think he's going to be better defensively. Like maybe it's a cross between like Rashard Lewis and Jaren Jackson Jr. or something along those lines. I don't know. But as somebody who really liked Rashard Lewis when he played, I saw some of that, and I think he could be a better version of that.
Yeah, that's fair. And the defensive part you mentioned, like he similar to Mathurin, like he is an athletic defender. He's not necessarily. I don't call him a good defender. I think he has a lot of like mental drops in that. But he played next to Walker Kessler, who was literally the best defensive player in college basketball last year. So like it let him do that. It let him be the X factor defender and have a chase down block, and that's all you remember him about defensively the whole year. But I think he has potential to be like that. And Jaren Jackson makes sense. Like, is Jabari going to be a depoy? Probably not. But he's 6'10" like Jaren. He could shoot like Jaren. He has a funky shot like Jaren, but he shot like 42% from 3. And having those two like different upsides is pretty spot on. That's exactly my comp is Jaren. So
I like Jaren like a little more athletic. Jaren and Jaren is I think more athletic than what he shows too. Like just the game he plays, but the way we see him run the floor. He can do the blow by off the pump and go. There's a little bit more to him than that. He just isn't going to be the defender that Jackson is at the moment. But like you said, with his athleticism, he could catch up. He could be effective on that end, or at least disruptive. Like he's going to have some lapses. He's going to give up some dunks, but he's also going to run guys off the rim, which is going to be helpful. But I love his game. I mean, that was one of the guys I watched during the year that like immediately jumped out. Like, man, this you can see his pro game already, and he's only going to get better.
Could we actually get to Chet Holmgren because we did mention him, but like he's somebody who, I mean, I feel like he's very polarizing just as a draft prospect. And this draft is pretty unique because like I feel like in the last few years around this time or maybe a little bit after even, we kind of felt like we knew who was going number one more or less. It's been a little bit debatable, at least in this draft, because there's Paolo Banchero love. I don't necessarily think he's going number one, but it's possible. I guess it depends who wins the lottery, right? Jaden Ivey is somebody who is not really seen as a number one pick, but I think there's a world where he may become the best player in the draft. So, I mean, Ryan, like, what do you see in terms of, who can go number one and also just, really become maybe the best player in the draft? Because I feel like those are two different things, kind of like what we've seen in previous drafts.
Well, I'll start with Chet. I feel like he's so overhated, and maybe it's just me seeing people say that, but I don't know. I get why people don't like him. Like his frame is unique at the least, and like people say Bol, which is the laziest thing in the world. Like he is nothing like Bol. He is going to be 10 times better on day one, and it's not really. I'm trying to knock Bol, but it's a praise to Chet because he's going to be good, and he has the highest upside of the class, like 100% highest upside. You do the right things with him, develop him the right way on the right system, he will be the best player. But like you said, like we have the top 3 guys. Ivy's not far behind. It's about fit. I think between those top 3 guys, Paolo, Chet, and Jabari, the biggest difference for me is the on-ball role they command and they can command. We're like, Chet has the least on-ball role. He'll command on day one. Jabari somewhere in the middle, and Paolo is the highest. Like he commands a lot. He likes the ball in his hands. He's patient with the ball, which is good. But only teams like maybe the Rockets that have that role to offer him make a lot of sense. Where like Chet and definitely Jabari, you can fit into any team, no matter what the system is. So
I think for me, we have similar sentiments in that, like, I think Paolo is immediately like pro ready. He'll be effective probably day one, quicker than the other two.
Yeah.
Jabari, you'll have to develop a little bit. You'll have to work with him. You'll have to find the correct situation. And then Chet is that wild card in the sense that we didn't get to see his full arsenal in Gonzaga with the offense he had to run, with the players he had to be next to, and the players he had to kind of coalesce with. And so, yeah, he has to deal with that. And we get to see a little more of him off the dribble. We get to see a little more of him showcased if he's on a team like the Rockets or the Magic, for sure, right? What always stands out to me, and I think it's kind of like the trendy take too, is his instincts on defense and his hands on defense. He's blocking guys. Yes, he's gigantic and has a ridiculous wingspan, but he's blocking guys because he's timing their jumps and he's meeting them at the rim and it's not just standing there like this, like Taco Fall. And so, like, that to me is what stands out and gives him the most upside going forward. But yeah, I think we'll see. You know, we're going to see a lot from Paolo immediately, and Chet, it may take some time. He is crazy slight, like you know, and you cannot look past that. He's even slimmer than Kevin was. He's slimmer than BI was, and it's like almost to the point where Ingram has added some weight. Kevin did eventually through time, and it's like, how much weight is this guy going to add? Because he is tiny. I was saying earlier before we got going, when he gets on the scale, it's gonna matter for a lot of teams. Like, we don't need to see him bench. We don't need to see him bench press, but like, let's see where he's at now. And then he's gonna add muscle. He's gonna add weight. He's so young, but man, he is slight.
That was a concern for Mobley last year, also, who like could argue was rookie of the year, 1 or 2, whatever. And like, I don't think they're that far off on weight and even size. Like, I think Chet's arms are a little longer, and their styles aren't that different either. Like, maybe Chet can be a little more wondrous with the ball and stuff like that. But defensive upside, like instinct, when we saw Chet versus Jalen Duren in the second round of the tournament, people were going after Chet because like a couple of times he got dunked on once. But he was super gritty against Duren, who is super strong, plays like Dwight Howard, like Bam kind of strength. Like, he plays really strong, and Chet held his own and was like super tough. And like, it's hard to judge that in prospects, but like, he does have that trait, like, to help him defensively.
I love the Mobley comp too, because it's a lot of the same instincts you saw Mobley have at USC, and then you've seen him have his rookie year in Cleveland to go, okay, like, he gets defense and he's just as agile. He's obviously he's probably a little more slim, but it's still the same concern. You had the same concern with Mobley, like, man, how's he going to bump against these guys? And I watched him in person twice in a week. And I'm like, yo, that dude, he's just jumped out of the court as the most athletic person in the gym. Yeah. And that's with some spectacular players on that court. So, yeah, I'm with you on Chet. Like, I'm just as high on him as just about anybody.
So the lottery just started. We have picks now, and they just showed all the people representing. But right now, 14 is going to the Cleveland Cavaliers. 13 is going to the Charlotte Hornets, 12 to the Oklahoma City Thunder. So they're not going to have the top 2 picks, Ryan, as we talked about earlier. The New York Knicks, I'm sorry to my Knicks fan homies back in New York, here in New York. They are staying at 11. The Washington Wizards are at 10. The San Antonio Spurs are at 9. And we are up to the New Orleans Pelicans, who are at 8. And they're represented by Swin Cash. Shout out to Swin Cash. Portland Trailblazers, represented by Damian Lillard, get the 7th pick, and Damian Lillard has a little bit of a smile there. That means the Sacramento Kings have jumped to the top 4.
Detroit out of the top 4.
The Pistons are 5. Like, we were talking about before, like, they're probably going to miss out on Ivy also, where Shaedon Sharpe saw a comment before. That's going to be a consideration. Like, they're going to have a tricky one because that's going to be tough.
The Kings is an interesting one because they've been trying to be in win now mode for a long time, and they've needed that guy to push them a little over. I love De'Aaron Fox. I love Baby Bonus as well. But they definitely need some athleticism. They need somebody to play defense.
They don't need a guard. They do not.
They do not need a guard.
They do that
they need
again.
to get rid of some guards.
That's the problem. They had to get rid of Halliburton because of that. So, like, I said this yesterday to someone, that if they get 4, they are going to be screwed again because they're going to be like, oh my God, what do we do? Do we trade back if the top 3 forwards go like right away? Because without the Pistons in there to take Ivy, like, who else is going to take them? Like, the Thunder aren't going to take a guard. The Magic don't need a guard. Like, it's going to
be interesting because you get Paolo You're probably not going to want to play him next to Sabonis. So, okay,
No
what do we
way.
do there? He's not playing center. We're probably not ready for him to play the wing, like small forward, be out there that rangy. What do we do? So you got to guess they're going to want Chet. They're going to want Jabari. Yeah, like you said, they might get 4 and just be screwed.
Maybe.
I hope they get one or two, because that'd be tough. Like to have an outside shooter like Jabari too, like that'd be great. And oh god, Sabonis is a double machine, but like you said, he clogs up a lot in the paint too. Like we don't need to be doing that.
So
yeah, I mean, he's gonna play on the elbow on offense, and he's gonna be slow on defense. And I like him. I like him a lot, but. Right. Yeah, you don't want to put Paolo next to him. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it makes sense. I just want to reiterate for people who may have lost track. The top 4 picks right now, Houston Rockets, in no particular order because they still have to decide the top 4. But the Houston Rockets, the Sacramento Kings, Oklahoma City Thunder, and Orlando Magic will be the top 4 picks. The order yet to be determined, but those are the locks. The big news is that the Detroit Pistons, unfortunately, moved back to 5. The Kings jumped up. And yeah, it's tough. But comments, questions, concerns about everything going on tonight. We saw somebody said that the Cavs were robbed, wanted to shout them out. Somebody asked about Shadon Sharp, who we might get to momentarily. Potential top 5 pick, even though he did not play at Kentucky last year, is entering. So some more comments we have here. Andrew, you could throw any up. I don't care. We'll get to them. Doesn't matter. You could throw up even the bot here that keeps leaving Yankee scores and other baseball scores. You could throw that up if you want, for all I care. But right now, my boy Dexter Henry. This is actually my podcast co-host, A Hard to Tell podcast. I know deserve ain't got nothing to do with it, but Sacramento doesn't deserve to move up in the lottery with laughing emojis. I mean, look.
As a Sacramento native, the Kings do not deserve it. Sacramento might deserve it a little bit, but the Kings don't deserve none of that. I tweeted yesterday, watching Luka and Trey go conference finals in back-to-back seasons is a really good reminder that the Kings are by far the worst organization.
People talk about that trade, the Hawks Mavs trade, but like they forget that like maybe they did both win and the Kings were the only losers out of it.
They were the only losers. Even the Suns, like we went to the finals. DeAndre Ayton seems to be on the first thing smoking out of town, but
we'll see.
Yeah, I mean they made it to the finals. They had a chance. He looked great in the playoffs last year. So even them, they're like, "Yo, we missed out, but we at least didn't. We're not the Kings."
I saw a lot of Ayton and Pistons stuff. So like, if they want to use 5, if they want to get Ayton in something or like in a package deal somehow, like I saw the Pistons are like even odds to be the next team if he leaves the Suns, which like is interesting. It makes sense. So.
Do we actually think any of these teams, Eddie, I'll throw this to you. Do you actually think any of these teams should use this first round pick to try to get DeAndre Ayton if he's going to be moved from Phoenix?
I like the Pistons idea because, again, what we mentioned earlier, like I feel like they're the closest to competing, but the Kings are a wild card there too because they probably – that is kind of what they need. Like they like Richaun Holmes there, but an athletic big who can kind of help change their defense a little bit and be a scoring threat. Now, that's the thing with Sabonis. You got to keep wondering about the fit. The Pacers tried for however many years to figure out, okay, how do we play a center with him? What type of center? They shuffled a couple guys in. They tried him at center and never quite figured it out. Mike Brown's got a tough task with that. But, yeah, I could definitely see them coming off that pick and finding something more, already ready packaged rather than dealing with that. But if you get 1 or 2, like you got to take one of those 2 big guys and just roll with it.
Yeah, Texas Tough SOB agrees that the Pistons need a true big center, whether it's DeAndre Ayton or somebody else. I mean, look, I don't know how Sabonis is going to feel about going from Miles Turner to DeAndre Ayton. He's going to be like, damn, can't I just like operate like the way I want to here? But, I don't know necessarily what the Kings are looking for. But right now, the lottery is back. So we are about to find out in what order these top 4 picks will be. So
there it is.
Should be really good.
So the Kings got 4.
The Sacramento Kings have the 4th
Magic
pick. Sacramento Kings have the 4th pick.
They're absolutely taking Chet Holmgren. There's no.
Chet and Suggs. I think they started playing together in 3rd grade. They played 3 years of high school together. Like reunite them.
They have to do it. There's no way around it. They had to do it. The Kings. Yeah. The Kings win and they lose at the same time. The most Kings thing ever. I love it. It's perfect.
Wow. So the top 4 right now, we have the Orlando Magic gets the first pick in the draft. That is something. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that in a second because I was wondering, like, what the hell is Orlando going to do given their roster right now, right? Oh, man. And the Oklahoma City Thunder, they have the 2nd pick. They also have the 12th pick, and they also have a lot of other draft picks. The Houston Rockets are at number 3. and the Sacramento Kings moved up to number 4. So the Orlando Magic win the lottery. They have the first pick in the draft. They've had the first pick in the draft several times, I feel like, throughout the course of their existence. But look, man,
3 looks like pretty easy. I feel like we know it's got to be Chet to Orlando. The Thunder and Jabari make too much sense also. And then Paolo to the Rockets, they probably would have taken that 1. Like, I feel like that 3 makes, and then Sacramento was screwed, but whatever.
So Chet Holmgren and Wendell Carter would be starting together.
Yeah, honestly, Chet's a 4 in my opinion. He's better at the 4. He can shoot the ball like a 2 guard. So he like what he can do, and you can put him anywhere. Like you could figure it out. You could put him on the Cavs, and he'd be fine. I think you'd figure it out. But because of the shooting upside, I think he'll be fine with that.
That is so
and going back to the Celtics thing, like we saw that with the Cavs, like you just mentioned. Having 2 bigs out there isn't like the death knell that it once was, especially one that can shoot like Chet can. So it's like, yeah, let's make it work. That makes our defense rangier, it makes our defense longer, and we just make up for the shortcomings. But if you have shooters, you can run as many big fellas out there as you want. Just make them run around. But I'm very interested in what you think about the Thunder. You have Jabari as kind of like a shoe in there as they continue to build this up from the ground floor. Yeah. How do you think that fits for them and what they're trying to do?
They took too many guards already, but it doesn't matter because they go best player available at this point. But like SGA, Giddey, Trey Man, like you can't take too many guards. Even Lou Dort, like you can only develop so many players, even if it is for long term. Yeah. They need front court players like Jeremiah Robinson Earl got a lot of PT. He's solid, but he's a rotational piece. And like Jabari's perfect what they need. He has size, athleticism, which they do not have at all. They're starting Pokusevski half the games, which is the opposite kind of player. But Jabari can shoot like that. Like he's a little bit more of a long-term project. Like I feel like it's perfect for them. And he's going to play off SGA and Giddey, 2 natural playmakers, like so well.
Yeah, they're going to feed him buckets. He's going to have some easy buckets every night. Not a ton because they don't have a ton of roster talent, but they will find him when they need to and feed him a couple dunks and a couple open threes here and there. Yeah. So, I mean, I like it. And it fits their timeline. Like they're fine with taking the time to get this right because they're on that timeline. Whereas, the Rockets, who knows what their timeline is and what they want to do with their coach and on and on and on. But I think Paolo's the perfect fit for them. And as they continue to build whatever Jalen Green's going to turn into, I really like Jalen Green.
Yeah.
And they're just adding scoring punch and they're adding athleticism to that team. And, like I said earlier, I think Paolo's going to immediately be a force. And, yeah, they should look better next year than they looked to start this year. Barely look NBA team.
Paolo to me definitely makes sense in Houston because Christian Wood seems like somebody they would move off of this offseason. I'm not sure what's Kevin Porter Jr. I'm not sure if they're going to keep him long term. They still have Jayshawn Tate there, who I like a lot, and obviously Jalen Green. Like Paolo Banchero, I feel like makes a lot of sense there. We have about 10-15 minutes left, so if you want to enter these contests, if you're watching on YouTube, the link is pinned there, how to do it. And on Twitch, you can comment !contest with no space, !contest like some people were doing earlier to enter. We're going to announce the winner shortly, so make sure you get your entries in. The prize, remember, is 100 DFS credits on FanDuel and a Saddiq Bey signed jersey. Shout out to the Detroit Pistons for that. A Saddiq Bey signed jersey. They have the 5th pick, but look, Detroit Pistons, you could still get something at number 5, but oh man, the Orlando Magic. So 3 times this was posted in the chat by obviously FanDuel. Magic has had the number 1 pick a few different times throughout their existence. The last 3, Dwight Howard in 2004, Chris Webber and Shaq in the early 90s back-to-back. Chris Webber was obviously traded. But they nailed the Dwight Howard and Shaquille O'Neal picks.
Sure.
Both guys were able to spearhead teams that went to the NBA Finals before they eventually moved on. But if history sort of repeats itself, and look, Ryan, you were talking about the potential of Chet Holmgren being there. If that is in fact the pick, and you're playing him next to Wendell Carter, I mean, you got Jalen Suggs, you got Franz Wagner, who is somebody who had a really good rookie season. Maybe you're finally getting something down there in Orlando.
Cole, Suggs,
Anthony,
Fultz coming back from injury too. I'm one that believes Suggs is their point guard of the future. Like he had a really inefficient start to the year after his injury. He came back, he was much better. He's a good defender. He's a really good playmaker, and I think he reminds me of like a poor man's like D Rose in his prime. He plays like similar style, like athletic. He can like he's not a great shooter or anything, but I think that team is good. Like you said, Cole, Fultz, Suggs, Franz, even Jonathan Isaac. If he ever plays basketball again, that'd be great. But like that team is good. That team is and they get some for Bamba if they want. But there you go.
Isaac's an interesting point because going back to what we were saying earlier about modern players, he's an incredibly modern wing right now. But like you said, who knows if he's going to play basketball? The Kings, I don't know. I don't know what they do there. They cannot take Ivy. I mean,
they have to win now, right? They have to draft to win right now.
They always feel like they're trying to win now. They're trying to get the play in. They're trying to be active. I don't.
Aaron's what 24 almost, and Sabonis is like 25. So like, can you take an 18-year-old that you've never seen before, or Ivy who like 19? You have to. They almost might have to consider either trading back or going for like Keegan Murray, who like maybe he's not the best player available, but he's a wing scorer. He's going to play the 3, a little bit of the 4. He's athletic. He doesn't like he can play off the guards really well. He can shoot well. He's efficient. Like that seems like it makes a lot of sense. But like, is it too much of a reach at 4?
Murray was the prediction on the screen a while ago. I think they have to explore trading that. There's going to be people who will want that pick. There's a lot of talent in this draft. There's a lot of top heavy talent in this draft as well. I think Ivy is enticing for everybody. You mentioned the job comparison earlier, and I think there's something to that. So, yeah, you get an explosive ball handler like that, whether you want to call him point guard, whether he's going to play next to a point guard, whatever it may be. But you if you can get that and you feel like you're close to contending or you're close to being in the playoffs or wherever your goal is there, he just doesn't fit for them. That's the problem. They have too many point guards. They don't even know what to do with most of them. And then traded the guard who a lot of people felt it's the better guard last year just to unclog the logjam. So yeah, I think they had to explore getting that out of there. And who knows, maybe Ayton is in play.
Here's a question. Of the teams in the top 5, and that would be the Orlando Magic first, Oklahoma City second, Houston Rockets third, Sacramento Kings fourth, Detroit Pistons fifth. Of the teams in the top 5, which team do you think is most likely to actually trade their pick, trade out of the top 5 and potentially get a player? Like, is it the Kings because they already have De'Aaron Fox, they already have Domantas Sabonis, they may want to operate on a different timeline? Or is it somebody else? Like maybe it's Oklahoma City who's like, all right, we can't keep drafting everybody. We have to at some point consolidate some of these picks and get players. Eddie, what do you think?
If the Thunder were closer, I could see them saying, hey, we'll take 2, we'll take 12, and we'll take Lou Dort or whatever it may be, and let's go get X available borderline star. But they're just not close. They're just not even close to close, really. And they're fine with that. Their ownership is on board. Their front office is on board. It's like, hey, we'll maybe win 25 next year, and that's cool. Or develop our guys. I think it has to be the Kings because all the things we mentioned, and they're just in this perpetual middle, the worst place to be in the league. They're not bottomed out. They're not close to competing, so they're just there. So I think it has to be them, and I think there's gonna be a lot of interest, honestly.
Yeah, I think like the Kings make too much sense. The Pistons, like, I feel like they're going to wait until draft night, or if the Kings, like say the Kings trade out and someone else comes in, then they're like, oh shit, like we're not going to get Ivy anymore. Or maybe we don't like Sharp or we don't like Ivy, vice versa, whatever it is. They might be like a reactive kind of domino effect. Like we have to trade out and let's go get a player that we can find to fill like Ayton, say example, whatever it is, to fill in the gap that we have because we didn't get top 4 and we only like 4 guys like that. A lot of teams are going to do that where they're like, we like 6 guys and we're at 8. We can't make the pick. We can't bank on it falling until draft night. Like, it's not going to work. So
the business to me turns into what do they do with Grant? And maybe you feel like you can package that with Grant and get like a star, but who is disgruntled enough to want to be out and then want to go to that destination where they're building and they're not, it's not like you're jumping right to a competitor. They're not jumping to somebody who's trying to compete. So I don't know. The Pistons are interesting, but Grant is going to be the first domino for them, and it might not ever fall. Like a lot of people thought it was going to fall in the trade deadline this year, and coming up in the last few days, it was like, yeah, we're off it. We're keeping him, and that wasn't always going around, and everybody moved along. And then we saw James Harden go where he went, and the trades that did end up happening, and the Pistons stood pat. So I think it starts with Grant, but I don't see them trading that. They're going to have to find some talent there.
This is a good question from Grim Fan here. Andrew, if you see this, you could put it on the screen. Should the Bulls trade Levine or Lonzo Ball or both to get a top 5 pick in this draft. I mean, if you're doing that, you're keeping DeMar DeRozan. So I don't know if you want to necessarily like make that your timeline, right? If you want to have a top 5 pick next to DeMar DeRozan. And it's funny that you mentioned this, Grim, because I was just thinking about this and I wanted to toss to you guys. What does Portland do at the same time? Because I want to answer this question, but also answer the Portland question, because you have 7, you have Damian Lillard. And I feel like those are both teams where, you kind of have to win now because of the age of your stars. And in the NBA, especially now, like it's just so wide open. Like it's just a different time than it was a few years ago where it felt like it was a race between a few different teams.
Portland, that's a tough one because I feel like they're in a good spot though at 7 because we talked about guys like Mathurin that can be great for them, explosiveness. Jalen Duren, they need a center. Nurkic is 1, never healthy, and 2, not good at defense, and 3, I think is expiring contracts if I'm not mistaken on there. So they're gonna need a center also. He's younger, might be more of a long-term deal too, but I feel like they're in a good spot. Do they trade out of it and try to get someone that's like 25, 26, entering their prime, whatever that is? Ayton could be a good fit there. But I don't know. I feel like they're in a pretty good spot to kind of stay where they are.
Yeah, for the Bulls, I think with Lonzo Ball's knee and the reports coming out about that, it's hard to know. And it's hard to know that anybody's going to jump on that either. Zach, it has to turn into a situation where he wants out. We don't know if he wants out, wants to stay. He seemed happy. He got his own knee issues to deal with that you got to be a little concerned about as well. The team I'm thinking we haven't mentioned yet that I think could be a shaker, the Jazz. And if you're a big Donovan Mitchell fan and you got the 4 pick, hey, maybe you go see what's going on, or you got the 5 or whatever pick. And if the Jazz are ready to break it down and build it back up and just don't feel like that group they have there can get it done, maybe Rudy Gobert's out there to be had, and he could be a game changer for a bunch of teams. So maybe that's a team that jumps out and says, hey, we'd like to get into the draft. Let's see what happens.
And they're definitely going to do something. We know they're splitting up one of them, if not both of them, just in some capacity. They're doing something. We mentioned the Raptors before also. I talked about them earlier. They have no first-round pick. I think it's from the DeRozan trade or whatever it is, a while back. But the Raptors are at 33, so it's an early second, so it might as well be it's kind of like a late first. If they wanted to move up into the late lottery for a team that maybe wanted to move back, I don't think it's crazy, because if they saw a wing, one of those athletic guys they want to add, they can go do that for sure. And that's definitely a team I could see doing that. And Masai Ujiri would do something like that for sure. And be we see whoever it is, if someone starts falling to Keegan Murray makes a lot of sense. We mentioned Mathurin. These guys are just athletic wings just to add to the group. So,
yeah, I mean, you heard OG's name kicked around a little bit at the trade deadline. I don't know that they're in a rush to trade him unless it's for something maybe like a top 5 pick. So I could see them getting active as well. He's not one to stand pat and just wait. They want to be active. They want to compete every year, and they have a good recipe there with what they're doing. So if he's that interested in an early pick, it wouldn't shock me to see him jump out and go get it.
One of y'all mentioned the Hornets earlier too. They have 13 and 15 confirmed now. If they want, we know they need a center. If they're going to trade up for Duren maybe, or they're not going to trade up for Chet, it's obviously unlikely, but they're at a spot where 13 and 15 honestly is going to be too high to take a guy like Mark Williams, I think. And maybe 15 is not if they take someone else at 13, but they can easily package those to get into the top 10, maybe even top 6, top 7 if a team is willing to trade out. Like the Blazers, if they want to package those 2 picks for something else, or figure whatever it might be. It depends on the teams. The Pacers could be an example. But I feel like that's a team that we should definitely watch out for, because they're young still, the Hornets. So if they take Duren, who's 18, turning 19, it makes a lot of sense. LaMelo is only 21. It's not like you have to win now. You're still playing for the future, and you want to make the playoffs this year because you almost made it last year. But I think that's a very reasonable situation for them to trade up into.
I think Cleveland is another one where, they have the Sexton contract coming up. They have a little bit of a logjam there in a couple different positions. Yeah, we could see them maybe not top 5, but maybe they get in the top 10, or maybe they clear a little bit of roster space just to essentially turn 2 guys into one and again, get with their timeline.
Or they go to the Jazz too. And I think if a star comes available like Donovan, or Levine, that's perfect. They have a playmaking guard who is not score first. They have the defense. They have a bunch of guys that can play as rotation second unit. If they add Donovan Mitchell, that's exactly what they need to take that next jump, I feel like.
They're in a really good sweet spot where they could shoot for win now, or they could say, hey, we're on Evan Mobley's timeline and we're going to do that and work with that. Sure. And, we're about to find out probably.
True.
All right, we have a winner we're going to announce that now for the contest. This is for the 100 DFS points from FanDuel and the signed Sadiq Bey jersey. The winner is, we don't have a drum roll, so I could like bang on the table, but I don't want to like potentially mess up my connection. The weather's been weird here in New York. But the winner is Max McSweeney. Congratulations. FanDuel's going to reach out to you tomorrow to get your information so they can send you to sign Sadiq Bey jersey and hook you up. So shout out to Max. Thank you for everyone who entered rocking with us. Yeah, we can clap for him, as somebody said in the comments. We can clap. They won't shut off the mics or anything like that. We got Heat Celtics now. And speaking of Donovan Mitchell, I feel like one of these teams, the Miami Heat in particular, they could be looking at Donovan Mitchell later on. So we're not gonna go for too much more. Just some last observations here. But do we think that do we have any big sort of bold predictions? Because we talked about a lot of players that could potentially be on the move. I think Donovan Mitchell is probably the biggest name, the biggest domino that I expect to fall, be it in Miami, unless Tyler Hero starts to pick it up, or New York in particular. But what do you guys see between now and the draft in terms of player movement?
I think the draft is kind of the beginning of it. So I'm with you with the same guys. Like I think the Jazz are ready. Maybe they need a little push and shove from Mitchell or from Rudy. I don't think those Bulls guys are moving, in part because of the injuries and in part because it just makes more sense for them to stay there. There's not something that's a ready-made situation that Zach LaVine hops into, and it makes complete sense, unless he's dying to be a Knick, I guess. But I don't know who's dying to be a Knick.
He's tweeting every day about the Rangers and Mets and stuff, so you never know.
Yeah, he might be. I mean, that New York life, it's no joke. But I think Mitchell as of right now, and then Ayton. But the thing about Ayton is, it seems like everybody's expecting that already, and that's not going to be a surprise.
Yeah,
I think the Knicks should also. I think the Knicks should also snoop around the DeAndre Ayton situation if they don't get Donovan Mitchell. I think they should try to get Mitchell. I know they want to keep RJ Barrett, and I think that they should. I'm trying to figure out how you can do that while getting Donovan Mitchell, keeping RJ Barrett, and doing that. You're gonna have to give up a lot of draft capital, including the 11th overall pick you just got. So Ryan, where do you sort of stand on all this?
I mean, it's hard to say no. Like, those are definitely the guys. Donovan's definitely a big one. The Gobert's also one. I know teams like the Mavs or the Hawks could use one. I think maybe it's me knowing too much and like trying to learn too much about the Hawks and stuff like that. But like, I know they're going to be in the market for a guy this year. Whether that's going to be, if the Celtics would have lost last round, I would have said Jaylen Brown. If maybe Bradley Beal, but I don't think he's ever going to leave Washington. Or they could go for a center also. They could go for someone like Miles Turner if he's on the move. Malcolm Brogdon is definitely going to be on the move. Don't know where he's going to go because of his injury history and his age. He's probably going to be cheap. So if he can be healthy, I think he's a great like bargain get almost. And I think teams like the Hawks that need another playmaker, another ball handler, like that does make sense. So he's someone maybe not of like stardom status per se, but I'd say he's going to be on the move too.
Yeah, they got a couple movable pieces there, whether it's Collins, Capella, or even DeAndre Hunter, who I think is an enticing young player for a lot of guys. But it's just about them finding that fit, and it has to fit around Trey. And I agree with you. They need another ball handler. They need their Jalen Brunson, and he's not gonna handle the ball all game. And as much as we say, Trey needs to get off ball, he's not going to very much. But they need to spell him a little bit and make it at least so you don't just trap them all game and you win the series.
That's on the staff too. Like, that's so much on Nate McMillan, and it bothers me. Like, Steve Kerr, and I'm not comparing Trey and Steph. I know people hate that. I'm not doing that. But Steve Kerr instilled that in Steph from day one, and they never had elite playmakers or like stars until Clay made his All-Star games and Draymond and stuff. And they're still not like these great ball handlers by any means. But he instilled that in Steph, and like that's what helped him become the best shooter ever. And like Trey's not going to become that, but that's what they need to do. They need to mimic that to get the most out of Trey in their offense. So
yeah, he's not 6'8", 6'9", whatever Luka is, to where it's like it doesn't matter if you double me, I can make the passes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean they have to figure that out, because I mean I watched it happen with Kevin in the regular season and then in playoffs. It just seems like teams are just going to double guys now. Like, we're just going to double you at half court, and you have to give it up, and they have to figure out a way around that.
Yeah. All right. Now that the Heat and Celtics are going to take the floor, we're going to get out of here. Thank you, everyone, for watching, for rocking with us for 45 minutes. Draft lottery. We did get a surprise. The Sacramento Kings.
Sure.
Man, the Sacramento Kings. I mean, we'll see what they do with it, but all of those teams are pretty much under pressure now to deliver. But Thank you, everybody, for joining us. For Ryan Hammer, for Eddie Gonzalez, follow Ryan Hammer on Twitter, Ryan Hammer09, FanDuel's NBA draft guru, and then Eddie Gonzalez, the etceteras, Kevin Durant. They just had an interview with Kyrie Irving, so y'all should probably want to check that out, given that Kyrie Irving is not doing a ton of media these days. So thanks, peace, everybody. Yeah. Shout out to the boardroom, shout out to the Detroit Pistons, and shout out to everyone at FanDuel for hooking us up. Peace. Good night.
See you guys.